Hey, it's Cody. We're someplace different today. This is my bedroom because my house was freezing, and this is the only room that's somewhat comfortable. I mention this because you are actually sitting on a little baby tripod on top of a laundry basket that's upside down on top of my bed. So every time I move too much, it's gonna shake, and I'm sorry. Every time a cat walks, it's just, that's the way it's gonna be, and I'm sorry. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about why I don't want anyone to think that I think there's people like obsessed with this channel and watching every video or some shit. But if you have seen several of my monthly books and decks for the year ahead, or the month ahead sorts of videos that I do the beginning of each month, you may have noticed that for the last several months, I have not had any witchcrafty or tarot or like occult kind of books on my books for the month ahead lists. And every time I'm gathering my books for these videos, I'm always like, I'm really not reading any witchcrafty books right now. And I almost feel like this little stab of guilt because this channel is ultimately about tarot. Some of my other witchcraft practice stuff in here, because for me it's not just a tarot practice, like it's all interconnected with a bunch of other shit. And I'm like, I don't know if people really just want to be seeing like random fiction and fantasy kinds of shit that I'm reading. And I realize that probably seems weird, and I always feel kind of guilty that like I'm not talking about any of like just the witchcrafty kind of books. Like, okay, what I mean by that is like the books that are shelved with witchcraft or even like self-help kind of paranormal, you know, that section where they'll kind of have like the witchcraft books, the books about tarot, the astrology shit, it's not that I'm not going there and looking at the shit, I haven't been buying it. I've been thinking about this topic actually for a couple of years, and I think the first time that it really occurred to me is Isca from the Stitchin' Witch had posted a video where they were talking about the top books that they recommend for beginner witches. And so I watched the video and I was like, I wonder if they have any, because like I know they've been practicing for years, you know. So I was like, I wonder if they have any good recommendations for a more advanced practitioner, right? And so I asked, and I did eventually get a video which explained something I think I'd been feeling or like fearing maybe, but that I hadn't quite put into words or like cemented the idea in my head. And I remember them saying something. I'm gonna look and see if I can find this video. So I will link Isca's channel, The Stitchin' Witch, in the description box. But I also want to put a link to this specific video to hear them talking a little bit about it. Saying that once your craft reaches kind of a certain point, these witchcrafty books, they don't cut it anymore. And there's not really one step directly up from that. It's more like... I don't remember what those plot point kind of things where there'll be like one idea in the middle and then there'll just be like a whole bunch of offshoots going different directions. That's really what it's more like. And they were saying that they could show some books that they had been working with. Oh my god, that's a cat, I'm sorry. But that it wouldn't necessarily be relevant to everyone's practice because that was the direction they had taken their practice. And that, at the time, that shit blew my mind. I was like, oh my god, like, I've been looking in the wrong place for this shit. And, yeah, so this isn't gonna be exactly about that. Kind of. Okay. So, this might be an unpopular opinion. I don't think we need any more, like, Witchcraft 101 books. I understand the allure, I guess, of, like, oh, your favorite witchy personality on social media has come out with a book and you want to buy it, right? And you want to support them, or you want to read what they have to say, or the problem is, like, I get that feeling, right? But the problem is that I don't think any of these books are really saying anything that the other ones aren't, right? It's all circle casting, basic home protections, some recipes for oils or teas, or like, they're so, it's just base level stuff over and over. Tarot books are kind of like this too. There are just so many, books that are just describing in slightly different words the exact same RWS card meanings. And we don't really need any more. You just pick one and you've done it. Like, it's, I'm probably gonna get hate for, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm on here to express my opinions, even if people hate them. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, inspiration, I guess. I've read a lot, okay, of witchcraft books, and a lot of them are, like, ultimately, no matter how they're being, advertised, they're ultimately pretty much all of them are fucking Witchcraft 101. Now I've bought some of these with my own money. Some of them have been sent to me for review from, like, Wiser Books. And I'm not saying that I've never gotten anything out of them. Okay, my practice doesn't exactly take anything from anywhere. Like, okay, when I first started my little witchcraft journey, I was 12 in 1999, and I got a book. This is a witch's book of divination by, I believe it's Kalia Underhill. Yeah, I know this is backwards, and I'm not going to change it. And I was glued to this thing. I was obsessed with it. It mentioned circle casting and stuff like that. Ultimately, it's, there's, like, symbols you can paint on the bottom of a box, like on the inside bottom of it, and then you, like, rattle around a moonstone in there. When you open it, what it lands on is, your answer, or, like, ways to paint a drum that I would never do. There's just, there's some cool shit in here that actually I don't really see anyplace else, a lot of this. But I forgot what I was saying. Oh. It was only at the very beginning of my practice where I would do things exactly to the T what was in a book, right? I mean, I didn't know any other witches in person. The internet wasn't really a thing at that point where you could just hop on and find other people with similar interests or ideas, or it just wasn't like that. Like, there were chat rooms and they all sucked ass. So I think lack of information actually helped me in formulating my own practice. Because this was it. This was what I had. And I also had, I can't believe I got rid of it, or it got thrown away on me. I don't remember. Okay. It was Llewellyn. And it was like a witch's date book, or I don't remember if it actually had calendar pages in it or what. It was actually, when I got it a couple years out of date. I found it at some secondhand store. I remember it had, like, those wood block kind of carving, stamp picture kind of looking things in it. I can't think of the right way to explain it. And there was a little, like, a page that was talking about each of the, I don't know, little pagan holiday wheel of the year things. And I was obsessed with that thing too. Like, those were my two books. I don't think I even bought another witchcrafty book. I don't even know. My oldest son was born and he's 14 now, so yeah, I was literally just operating on the small amount of information that I had between this book and this witch's date book or calendar, or, you know, how they come out with some yearly thing. They were doing that in the 90s too. So I think, honestly, it helped my practice to... It left me kind of making shit up, and trying things until they worked, because I feel like I had a reasonable grasp on what was supposed to be happening, without everything being quite so streamlined into one specific practice, if that makes any sense. So, I'm not sure that I'm explaining myself well. My lack of resources as a beginner witch almost made it. It sort of formed me in a way that I don't do things always the way that these books do. I don't cast a circle. Ever. Never. Like, nothing that I'm doing do I cast a circle. Last time I cast a circle was out of that Witch's Book of Divination sitting there, and I was still living at home with my parents. So it just, I have not found it to be particularly protective of anything. Like, it just, I don't do it. And I think that a lot of, like, witchcrafty books will act like you have to do this, or something terrible will happen to you, or, yeah, just stuff like that. That shit missed me, I guess, or I dodged that shit. I don't know. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's okay if your inspiration for your craft is coming from someplace that's different than these specifically witchcraft books, right? So, I want to say there are books that sort of move in one direction toward one path, right? So I have a couple here. One of them is this book, Brigid, by Courtney Weber. This is History, Mystery, and Magic of the Celtic Goddess. So I read this book with a book club, and I found this book really interesting, but I don't work with Brigid. I never have, and I honestly don't really foresee a time when I will. But if this, you know, you're trying to go over more Celtic or Druidic sort of path, yeah, like this is shelved with the witchcraft shit, right? Also, another good one is, The Book of Ancestors by Claire Goodchild of Black and the Moon. This one is talking all about different ways to work with ancestors, to honor them. It's got some really good ideas, and I find things in this inspirational for me to add into my practice. But again, I'm not going to exactly do that stuff. Like, okay. If I found somebody doing witchcraft, and they'd been doing it for longer than like a year, and they were still doing things exactly to the T like somebody else wrote, I would be really suspicious of that person, just because, like, where is your, like, magic? If that makes any sense. Yeah. Okay. I don't feel like a lot of, like, more modern eclectic practices, I don't think they should all be looking the same. Personally, I don't give a flying fuck about what high magicians are doing with their, you know, ceremonial kind of stuff, and, what's the one where you, like, channel Christian fucking deities and you can control demons and you have, like, this little triangle that they're trapped in and you command them or some shit like that. Shit is so far from what I'm talking about, okay? I have no patience for that shit. Like, if you're into that, good, do it. And I suspect there are very, like, specific ways that you're supposed to be doing that. Okay, that, I'm talking, like, folk magic kind of things here, right? I think that history of things, knowing where things came from, why are people doing it, who was originally doing this, what is cultural appropriation, those are definitely things that, for a witchcraft practice, a person needs to know. I kind of feel like a lot of witchy kind of accounts on social media are ultimately just aesthetics. And or they're talking about the same, like, 3 things. There's just constantly jokes about, like, oh, put that bitch in the freezer, haha. Like, I've never once done one of those freezer spells for somebody that I wanted to leave me alone. Like, it's not a universal experience, and I think that it's making newer witches feel like, oh, I better be doing this or I'm doing it wrong, or this is what everyone's doing. Like, that's not how this works. So just, I guess, be careful. Be careful out there, because people will think something is a certain way just because they see everyone doing it. Ultimately, it's trendy right now, okay? There's gonna be a lot of watering down. There's gonna be a lot of, I don't know. Okay, anyway. Where my inspiration mostly comes from. Ultimately, I think my inspiration comes from a lot of dumbass places. One that I'm thinking of is sometimes video games, okay? Like, the Zelda games when I was a child, the Ocarina of Time was, like, my number one thing. I still use sort of imagery, especially from, like, the foresty kind of areas in it, that are almost, like, inside my head. I have, like, places I go in there, and they very much resemble, whether I mean for them to or not, landscapes from Zelda games. And some of the newer ones for the Switch, I really like the little goddess statues. There are some, I can picture them, I don't know, like, where within the game they are. The little goddess statues that are sitting, like, in a pond, with little offerings and things around them. Like, that is so, I don't even know the right word to explain how much I love that. Like, I love that for myself, and, like, while the whole thing, it's a work of fiction, right? There's nobody actually working with these sorts of things, and I'm not trying to work with a specific thing. It's just the way that it feels right. Like, that sounds so fucking stupid. I do the same thing with like, literally just fiction books. Pattern card kind of things I've taken from M.A. Carrick's Rook and Rose series. Just different things that have been said about gods and magic and just stuff like that. If it feels right to me, then I sort of roll the ideas into my practice, if that makes any sense. Also, I have some other books. For the most part, I think it's books. Places that I'm getting my stuff, but it's just not specifically witchcraft books. A book that I'm really into is The Flowering Wand. This is by Sophie Strand. Now, I've talked about loving this book a couple times on this channel. I keep saying that I'm going to make a review of it, but then while I'm reading it, I forget to read it critically, like, in a review sort of mindset. Like, these are some things I could say about it or something. Like, it kind of sweeps me up into it and I forget, if that makes any sense. This book says it's spirituality / mythology. I don't know if you can see that because the line's weird, but the point is, it's shelved near the witchcraft stuff, I guess. So this is probably the closest. It's sort of it says here, rewilding the sacred masculine. It's almost going back and looking at the way that myths concerning masculine deities have been changed, sort of flexing with humanity's idea of masculinity, and how a lot of these older gods have sort of been warped and fucked up. Even their myths are being interpreted differently than they really should, than what they really meant when they first came out, if that makes any sense. Like, this, it's a very healing sort of thing, to sort of, I don't know, sort of start healing your relationship to masculinity and masculine deities and things like that. This book has been very, very, inspiring to my practice. There is at no at no point is there, like, a mention of witchcraft in here. It's a lot of mythological stuff, which, honestly, if you're a witch, you should know a lot of mythological kind of shit, right? This is the kind of thing where there's not one book where it tells you everything you need to know, right? You need to be doing your own research. So, it's got a lot of shit about Dionysus in here. We talk about Jesus, we talk about Tom Bombadil, we talk about fucking just so much old examples, new examples. This is such a beautiful book. I very highly recommend this. And I feel like this has really healed my relationship with some spirits that I've already been working with. Sometimes I almost have felt like this weird guilt when I see people with their goddess statues all over, and people are like, okay, we're letting, matriarchy's coming up, and it's on its way, the goddess is angry, and it feels weird to me to not really have that much of a connection with many sacred feminine sort of spirits or deities or anything like that. I'm very much more connected to the masculine ones, and I've spent some time. Now, I do want to say, I worked with these spirits just fine until, like, more recent social media kind of stuff in the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, maybe. It didn't even occur to me. Like, the spirits that I was working with, even despite their masculine energies or forms or things like that, were very much removed from this other stuff, and it was a lot of modern shit and social media that really started making me feel weird about it to begin with, but this fixed that problem. So again, fucking beautiful. Another thing, these are my current favorite poetry collections. These are all by Jared K. Anderson, and he is also known online as the Crypto Naturalist. He's got social media pages. I know that he has a podcast. I've actually never listened to it. And these are his 3 poetry collections. Leaf Litter is the newest one. Love Notes from the Hollow Tree. And Field Guide to the Haunted Forest. These books, they have poems in them, and some of them, some of them are just so almost like magicalizing small things. I don't know how else to fucking explain that. But these are just, it makes me think about things as being beautiful, and I don't know how to explain how the way that some of these poems in these books make me feel that actually turns into my practice. Like, I don't know. I'm not doing a good job explaining this, but I don't have a specific example, just the way that the feeling strikes me. Like, okay, I feel like a large portion of my magic is how I feel about it than what I'm physically on the outside doing. I don't know how to explain that. Okay. Now, here's my number one resource for my magic. And it's my own fucking notes. Okay? These are okay, so first of all, this is not like a grimoire, book of shadows, whatever people call them. This is pretty specifically not that. This is actually just like, it's a journal / note-taking on shit. Looking back at what I've done, what I'm doing, like, the bulk of my practice is informed by my own previous work. And by work, ultimately, I think I am very much a person who works with spirits. I don't mean like spirits of the dead or anything like that. Really just nature spirits. And they're not, I don't mean to be like, you probably haven't heard of my favorite band, but you definitely would not have, like, you're not gonna run into these spirits in a book. You know, they're not anything well known. They're not anything, maybe other people work with them, I don't know, but they're smaller than like a deity, you know. I have done a little bit of deity work. I feel like they feel far away. They feel sort of remote. I mean, they're not human. The spirits that I worked with aren't either, I guess, but something about them feels very large. For 2023, for a large portion of it, I was working with Aphrodite, which was super weird. I don't really know why she showed up. But at first I was really messed up because I was like, she very clearly, like, announced who she was, but I couldn't find any resources that were making her feel the way that she felt to me. And I was like, maybe, am I just losing my shit? Like, that's not the energy that I was getting. But I asked several times, I'm like, really, what are you? And, like, I know that spirits don't really like to say outright what they are, but she very clearly was Aphrodite. And finally I was like, I mean, ultimately, within my work and my practice, what is more important, right? What books and the internet are saying about this, or my own experiences with it, right? And ultimately, I think it's the experiences. Like, I'm not saying people can just make up whatever, right? Like, you can't just invent some insane shit. But just because something isn't always the common, the most mainstream consensus of something, doesn't mean that it's wrong. So, I don't even know how to wrap this video up. I feel like I didn't have exactly one point. I mean, I talked about the reason that I have stepped away from a lot of witchcrafty kinds of books. I'm just not finding them inspirational to my practice anymore. I'm not really running into anything new in most of them. And I'm grabbing little bits and pieces from just a lot of different places. And I guess I just want to say, like, I've been practicing for 22, 23 years now. Yeah. And it's okay if you're not doing the freezer spells that are on TikTok, or, you know, if you're not casting a circle, or whatever you're doing, it doesn't have to be exactly that. And I feel like it's almost, the more people talking about witchcraft, the more it almost feels like it's sort of trying to feed it into one specific practice. And I think that kind of the beauty of witchcraft is that it's not like that. It doesn't have to be. So I don't know. This was a long, winding ramble. I don't even know if I conveyed anything usable to anybody else. But yeah. That's it for today, so thanks for watching. Bye.